Yeah. This is a message that's not new to me, but I've kind of redone it and brought it up to today. I'm trusting Spirit will put this together for you in a way that you can receive something today from this particular message. I want to say everyone hopes in something, but not everyone displays that hope in the same way. That hope is embodied in what's sometimes referred to as the last request. Just before people are transitioning, often they will have some last request before they leave and move to the next level of their experience. And this is actually what happened with a man named Joseph. Now I want to make it clear to you, I'm not talking about Mary's Joseph. We're talking about the son of Jacob, who had some sons, who's also named Joseph. And you might know this Joseph if you ever went to Sunday school as the Joseph, the man that received the coat of many colors. So that might be the Joseph we're talking about, is the coat of many colors here. So I was fascinated. There's a chapter in the book of Hebrews 11 that is called the Hall of Fame of those of faith, that is known for something specifically that they've done. For instance, Noah is mentioned. Well, if I say Noah, we all think of the building of the ark and the animals and all that kind of thing. So not everybody that was mentioned there was someone that I knew exactly kind of what they were known for. But when it got to Joseph, it said by faith Joseph secured his bones. And I thought, why did he secure about his bones would not be buried where he died, but taken all the way through the journey of Israel into the promised land? It became a commandment that his bones be carried all the way into what was going to be Canaan, or the promised land. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Wow, I don't even know where to start with all this. There's so much of it. As you know, the children of Israel left Egypt, right? Because they had a destiny. And they weren't moving toward their destiny. And we often get in the same position where we kind of get stuck in hope. But we lose the movement. We lose the travel of it, the path that moves us along toward whatever our destiny is. And we all have one. I believe that everybody comes into an incarnation with a destiny. We call it a soul purpose, call it a lot of things, but every one of us has a destiny in each incarnation in which we experience. And because as we move into more body identity and get into the density of a self that we really aren't created to be, we lose that destiny. We lose the memory of the destiny. Let me put it that way. We lose our memory. And we start thinking we're here for this and we're here for that. And we start thinking the reason we're here is to be a mother, to be a father, to be somebody's brother or sister, or to be all these different things that we find when we get here in the physical realm. And I've always found it interesting that through the years that I have found that women, especially who have come to me, who have been mothers, and they've raised their children, and the child has gone to college, maybe they've married and moved on another part of the country, and all of a sudden they didn't know who they were because they had seen themselves as a mother of somebody. Or maybe they went through a divorce and all they knew, and they married young, and all they knew was to be a husband or a wife or a companion to somebody else. And these things change in our lives. And when they do, sometimes all is left is who we are, who we truly are. And that is something that I think that I've run into with a lot of people who have outgrown their physical bodily identity, and then they no longer have the label any longer so much that's active, and therefore they're kind of searching for who they are in the afterlife, after the life of being so many things that they thought they were destined to be. In fact, we've talked a lot about the new adventure that we're going through after Soma Energetics, this spiritual academy that we are putting together to reach a lot of people on different levels of their path, that we are realizing, because it asks us in dealing with this, what is your avatar, or what is your market, what is your target? And really it came out that it's mostly women, not to say men are excluded, but women who are on the internet searching for an identity. They want to do something with their life. They don't want to retire and just stop everything, but they're looking for purpose. They're looking for something they can do to help other people or to help the planet. And this is why you see this in a lot of spirituality. You see that 45 to 65, 70-year-old, and it really bothers me when we disregard this generation. They're a very powerful, important generation. We baby boomers are the most powerful people on the planet right now in many ways. And we need to use our wisdom, and we need to use our experiences to step up and to be who we are, and not think that life has passed us by. But life is trying to find you. So I thought, okay, why did he want his bones secured? And they carried these bones in a coffin for 40 years through the desert. It was that much of a commandment that they could not disregard the bones of Joseph. So I got studying this a little bit, and what I found out, beginning with Abraham, that Abraham also wanted to secure where he was going to be buried. And he secured a place called the Cave of Machpelah in the Bible, Machpelah. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Because the Cave of Machpelah was, at the time that it was being secured, wasn't much there. It was kind of a barren part of the desert, right? But what it was going to be in the future was going to be Jerusalem. It was going to be the place that Israel was going to come and find their destiny in the land that was going to become Judah and Jerusalem. It was going to flourish in the desert. But at that time, it was nothing but barren desert. Some people look ahead in their life and they just see nothing but a barren desert. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what my talent is. I don't know what my calling is. I don't know what it is. But let me give you a wonderful promise that it says that the desert shall blossom as a rose. So the barren parts of your life that look barren, there is seed that is planted there, that once it is watered and cultivated, it will become the new gardens of your life. It'll become the new places of flourishing in your life. So, also, Joseph, when he secured about his bones, he too bought this land at the Cave of Machpelah. I thought, what's going on that all these people wanted to be buried. And it wasn't just them, it was their wife and their kids. They wanted their lineage all buried in this very same place. It was nothing but a barren part of the desert. They knew something that was beyond themselves. They had a vision. And it goes on when you study this and read that it says, Canaan represented redemption, freedom, and life. When Israel came out of Egypt, by the way, the word Egypt is Mazarim in the Hebrew, which we get the English word misery. So your Egypt is when you get caught in your misery. It also means distress, darkness of ignorance. It also can mean the subconscious mind of deep shadows. You ever heard of shadow work? That's what it's talking about. It means you got to go into your Egypt and find the seed that is planted in you while you were in Egypt. Because the 430 years that the children of Israel was in Egypt, all that while they were making bricks for Pharaoh. That's what they did. They went down to the mud pits, and they threw straw in. And they just every day went down and made blocks for Pharaoh to build their great places that they built in Egypt. 430 years they remained in that state of slavery and misery. But all the while, their God of Israel had planted a seed in them that would flourish and let them know this is not your destiny. And I'm here to say today to me and to us, arthritis is not our destiny. Cancer is not our destiny. Disease and illness and sickness and depression and anxiety and insomnia and anything else that we are dealing with, we are still living in the misery of our Egypt. But in that place, a seed has been planted, even though it looks a little barren sometimes. And there came a time. There's always the grace time, I call it. The grace time of free will. God always gives us a period in which He sees, can we do it on our own? Can we do it through willingness and choice? And we don't always do it. We don't always make a different choice. One of the things that has not blessed us in the end, like it blessed us in the beginning of our evolution, is the ability to adapt. Now you need to learn to adapt because you had to adapt to famines, wars, all kinds of things in history that humanity has somehow been able to adapt to and survive. We are a survivalist people. That's what Homo sapiens are. They're the people that survived. But I'm going to tell you, there was one being, the one without the hue, who came along and said, but I'm here to tell you there's life and more abundant. You hear what I'm saying? You don't have to live in survival mode forever, but there is a way to live life and flourish. And he tried to give us that vision. And somehow Joseph and Abraham and Isaac and all of these that I could name all somehow had a vision that something was going to happen, even though it appeared to be a barren desert. Something was going to happen. So, when Israel came out of Egypt, it was through the mighty hand of God reaching down into history to visit. To visit. Now, we used to call things that were spiritual movements visitations of God. If we had a revival for 2 weeks, we'd call, boy, we had 2 weeks of a visitation of God. People were healed. All kinds of wonderful things were going on for a couple of weeks. And then people would go back to their old ways again. Because that's what a visitor does. They leave. Visitors don't come to stay. Visitors come for a while, and then they leave. So every one of you had different little times of visitations when things were really going good and things was going the way that you wanted it to, and you were happier and whatever, but maybe it just didn't last. Maybe something else hit, and the next thing you knew, you were back into misery again, back into Egypt. But we have the promise that there will be a people that will raise their consciousness to a level and a vibration that they will hold what is only visited to take its habitation within us. Even our bodies will become the place of habitation. The book says it this way, that God comes in and God goes out. God comes in and God goes out. God comes in and God comes out. Then it says, and God came in and never came out. What that means is the norms of spiritual life become what is normal to you. What am I saying? Love becomes normal over fear. Health becomes normal over sickness. Peace that passes understanding becomes the norm of distress. Happiness becomes the norm over depression and anxiety and fear. That's what we're looking for. And right now we're not holding it as a norm. I used to say to churches I used to go to, I said, I can preach you all into heaven for a while, but you'll come back because you live in hell. And I said, you got it backwards. I'd like you to start living in heaven, then we'll go visit hell once in a while and get a few people out and come back to heaven. Yeah, we got it all backwards in that way. So, what was going to happen? A visitation was going to take place. And I'm going to move on with this little thing here. So this is back 4,000 years before the Christ shows up in the human story. And by the way, the Christ was here long before the human story. In the Old Testament, it says that Christ was the rock that they drank from. So Christ is something eternal. It's not something that just happened that had a beginning. Christ represents that part of us that has no beginning and no end, no descent, no mother or father. And that's what we refer to when you hear me say Melchizedek order. If you read about Melchizedek, you're getting the description of Christ in the human level that has no parents, no beginning of days, no descent. So it is the eternal part of ourselves. And it said that Jesus brought in and opened up a new order called Melchizedek for every one of us to attain to that. Oh, so much. Bones. The first thing that happens after conception is the spine. After the spine, then comes the rest of the skeleton of the body. It is the hardest of the tissues of your body, and therefore holds the greatest energy. You think spirit holds the greatest energy. No, your bones hold the greatest energy, just as the hardest crystal, which is a diamond, holds the greatest energy. Long after someone has passed away and the body has begun to decompose itself, the bones remain. There are that much energy in the bones. So the bones have a lot about them. The bones, therefore, represent, get this, the urge to incarnate. What happens to your bones is based upon how you feel about being here in the life and the body in which you have chosen to be in at this time. Our bones And this is from Robert St. John, who does the Hermetic teachings. Says, portray the primary patterns of that which we start life at conception, containing the inherited traits, the karmic patterns, and are the other factors which are imposed upon our self in the way of entering into a new incarnation or life. So as our bones correspond to our willingness to be, the desire of life, they enable us to manifest and to move forward in life. Wow. So you not believe how powerful bones are. So I'm not going to get in it today, but I'm going to offer you on Wednesday, for you that will come to the 10:30, I'm going to do a teaching on why you have shoulder trouble, knee trouble, back trouble, hip trouble, and we're going to trace it back to an emotion that you are dealing with in your subconscious mind. Yes. See, all we want to do is heal it or replace it. Hip replacement, knee replacement, back surgery. That's all we want to do, and therefore we're leaving the old pattern that is shown up as pain in the joints and in the body. There's always a better way for healing to take place. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit on that, because I don't want to take the time to do that. Bones validate a conflict at the deepest level. Complete breakdown in communication. We cannot continue. In other words, I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm going to shut it off completely. Then the bones become the thing that stops us, for we can choose a different change in direction. When your bones in your legs don't work well, it'll stop you. Because your legs represent how you move through the world. Wrist, fingers, how are you handling your world? How are you handling your situations? All of these things are always language that needs to be interpreted. And we can do that if we choose to do that. So here's where I want to take us. I'm going to cut right to it. 2,000 years ago, so many things happened. And as I've told you, why 2,000 years ago is such a powerful time was so many cycles were coming together at the same time. There's a 13,000 galactic cycle that happened. There's a 2,000 cycle. There is the astrological 2,500 as it was moving into Pisces at that time. See, we're moving to Aquarius, but when 2,000 years ago or so, it was just coming into Pisces, the fish symbol, the water symbol. It was happening at that time. So a lot of things were happening that was opening up to us 2,000 years ago. So I'm going to bring you to Matthew 27 and 50. And it says, and this is the story kind of the crucifixion. I don't want you to throw out the metaphysical meanings of these things that you have let go of the dogma and the doctrine of. I know you don't want to believe that God would have sent his son to die and all of that. That's fine. But don't lose the story metaphysically, because it's your story. It is my story. It is our story. And it says that at this time, first of all, in 27, verse 27, and Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Now, I looked at these things, and the word loud doesn't mean loud, it means clear. A clear and voice means understanding. So something of kind of a clarion call went out, a frequency, a vibration went out that allowed Jesus to give up the ghost. What does that mean? The ghost means the illusion part. The illusion part could not stand in this frequency any longer. And then it says that the veil in the temple was rent from top to bottom. Now, up until that time, this whole situation with Israel was based upon who you were physically. It had to do with your nation, with your race, even the gender that you were. All these things were your physical human labels were all involved in that. And there were certain things that the Jewish people thought should be and kept Jewish. And when Paul came along and said, well, you Gentiles can also do what Jewish people do, and circumcision and all of that happened. There was such clashes that happened because of the fact of the differences that we saw in each other, because we was trying to hold on to our identity, our external identity with each other. And that still remains an issue today. There's still nations fighting against each other, religions against each other, because I'm not you and you're not me. Right? Well, Yeshua changed that. And the message was not, you can only enter into the presence of perfection and wholeness because of who you were in your physical label and identity, but the message was whosoever will, let them come. It was opened up. That's why when people say to me, why is this Christ thing? I was asked this week by a Jewish young man about the Christ thing, and I was trying to explain to him, when we say Christ, it is our term for universal mind of God in us. It's the universal mind of God in us. Now, others may call it different things, but most people seem to be somewhat comfortable with Christ consciousness. It's kind of made it into the New Age and to the metaphysical world that people refer to Christ consciousness. This is a universal consciousness because that's the way the true God is. It is universal. It is not exclusive. It is inclusive. It reaches out to everyone and everybody. So the veil was rent from top to bottom. Now, up until that time, the only person that could go into this place, called the Holy of Holies, was the priest. The people couldn't. They couldn't. So they had to be represented by the priest. And I've taught this to most of you, but not all of you. And the priest would go in for the people every year to atone their sin. Now remember what sin is in the Old Testament. Can anybody tell me what sin was in the Old Testament? Huh? In the Old Testament. Breaking the law. For the wages of sin is the breaking of law. So the only way they sinned was when they broke one of the laws of the 613 laws that was laid down for Israel. That's the only way that you sinned back in those days. So sin took on a different meaning in the New Testament than it did in the Old Testament. But it was all about the law. That's why the New Testament says there is no sin, because we do not have to obey the law any longer. So when you remove the law, you remove sin. But as long as there's law, then there is sin connected to it in that way. So he went in once a year And how he did it was that he wore a breastplate. Some of you remember this story. Remember, he wore the breastplate. And on that breastplate was what? 12 different stones, each representing a tribe of Israel. So there was the lapis, there was all these wonderful stones that we use today, was in the breastplate of the priest. So that meant everyone in each tribe was represented in the breastplate, which is over the heart. Over the heart. Then through the sacrifice, he took in, and how they did it in those days, gave atonement to every, even though they weren't there, they all got the blessing of the atonement because of who represented them. Who represented them. Oh, okay, well, thank you. In fact, last time I taught this, somebody gave me this. This is the breastplate with all the stones in it. There's the opal, the garnet, the ruby, sapphire, topaz. There's the emerald, onyx, agate, jasper, amethyst, and diamond. Each one of these represented. And there was atonement made for everybody. The message of the Christ was, you can come in for yourself. You don't need a priesthood to represent you, because I'm going to bring you to a higher order of priesthood that's going to give you the right to enter into the presence of the Shekinah. Some say Shekinah, but it's Shekinah, which is the pure presence of God that they experienced in the most holy place, which is feminine, by the way, if you look it up. It's also part of the Kabbalah, and the tree of life is the Shekinah glory. So now everyone has access to what only few people had access to. And this is because that veil that separated was rent. I believe that today upon the hearts of most people, there is a veil upon the minds of people that needs to be rent from top to bottom. Now get this, when this happened, the earth began to quake. What does that mean? Anytime I read of things shaking and quaking, vibration. So a vibration was released at that particular time. Now here's what I'm getting to. Remember Joseph, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all of the great patriarchs, all, for some reason, wanted to be buried at the cave of Machpelah. That was a desert, barren place, who is now just outside the gates of Jerusalem. Jerusalem now has been built up, and a city is built there. But outside, there was the graves of these people. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, and their wives, and their kids were all buried in those graves. Now, when we speak of graves in metaphysical, you're talking about your subconscious part of yourself. And you can look up grave in the Hebrew and the Greek, and you will see that the grave is where our true self gets buried. Where we bury our authentic selves and we push it into the subconscious part of ourselves. And we lose our memory of that. But here's what fascinated me, and what this led me to, bottom line, is, and many of the bodies of the saints that slept awoke. I believe with all my heart this is Joseph, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who secured their burial place to end up right outside of Jerusalem, because God was going to visit through Yeshua and rent the veil and open up the spirit world to them. You got to understand, this is why the Old Testament does not condone speaking to the dead, called necromancy. The Old Testament's against that. The Old Testament's against a lot of things like that. That was because the door to the spirit world had not been opened. And you could get in trouble dealing with these kind of issues until you found the door through it. Jesus said, I'm the door. Right? So a door was opened 2,000 years ago that we could start dealing with the spirit world directly. So there's a lot that happened as we move out of the law of the Old Testament into the grace of the New Testament. There was a lot more available to us because a portal and a door had been opened, that we had more access to things. Many of the bodies represents those who, and here's my tagline. Oh, that's up there, okay. My tagline is, be in the right place at the right time. That's my tagline. So I want you to think about your life. All the things you've been through, all the things you've dealt with, has all been moving you toward being in the right place at the right time. Now we're talking inwardly and outwardly, I believe. I believe that the journey that you've been on in consciousness has moved you to a level of consciousness to receive a brand new experience that's trying to break through to us. And I feel it here. I feel it for HeartLight. I feel because of any kind of testings or oppositions or anything that is happening among us is because of the fact that we are being prepared for something great that's trying to break through. I believe that. Go ahead.
Do you think that might be why there was a dispute between Satan and Michael the archangel over the body of Moses?
Oh, very much so. That's a whole new story. Yeah, that's an interesting point. So the graves are open. The subconscious in you is open. And the true you begins to resurrect and come forward in you. And now you are ready to receive what is trying to break through, whether we call it 5D or whatever you want to call it. But there's something beyond these dimensions that we've been living in time and space that is trying to break through. And now we are ready to receive it and come out of our graves.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it said those that came out of the graves went in the city and appeared to many. This is what I've been trying to tell you all along, that you that are coming to HeartLight are being prepared as a collective ministry. I don't know how to get this over to you. This is not come to church, hear somebody pump you up for a Sunday, and then whatever. This is preparation. These classes on Wednesday are for preparing you. The lessons are preparing you. The messages are preparing you. The workshops are preparing you. All these things that have been coming through here, whether it's been sacred geometry, whether it is the things that are going on today, and several things are going on here. And you need to get with it, folks, because this is what's going to prepare you to receive this great, for a better word, visitation that is about to happen to us here at HeartLight. And when we become what God wants us to be, then we can go out and begin to shine the light in the hearts of men and women everywhere. I hope that makes some. Exodus 13:19 says, and Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. This is all over the Bible. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you and shall carry up my bones away with you. Wow. Who would have ever thought, reading the Bible, that we would have caught about somebody's bones being carried to a certain place in a barren land that was going to flourish as the first fruits, that was going to become the first witnesses of the Christ consciousness made manifest in 3D. This is why I've done my best to try to do things to prepare you a little better with scriptures and whatever, to be able to have a conversation with people. I'm not sure you're taking it seriously enough to understand that you must study to show yourself approved, that you be not ashamed, rightly dividing the word of God. Quit telling your friends and family, well, we don't believe in hell at HeartLight. Let me tell you what, and they'll say, well, why don't you? I don't know, but we just don't. And then they're going to take scripture and wipe the floor with you. Right. Because they've been so prepared with what they believe and so trained in Bible schools and in Sunday schools that they're ready for you. And you're just sitting there taking it. Well, let me tell you, some of those people in your family and your friends in the world that are coming to you are coming to you because they're ordained to come to you. It's not by accident that your paths have crossed. Whether you like it or not, you live in a nation that has declared itself a Christian nation. I don't think it is, but they think it is. They've made it become a Christian nation. And therefore, Christianity is what has ruled most of the religious thinking of Western thinking. And therefore, that's what we have to deal with. You can't stick your head in the sand. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. And that's what I decided years ago when all this happened to me and all my friends started running from the Bible and running from Jesus and running from all of that. I said, no, I'm going to stay and understand it until I can explain it to people who have ears to hear.
That's right.
So I have talked to Mark back there, who next month would like to start a earlier class, I think at 9:15? 9:30. On explaining the parables of Jesus and explaining some of the principles of what Christianity is from metaphysical. He does very well with it. He's written books and material on it, and I think it'd be a great thing. Now, we can't make you try to do that, but if you have a desire for that, then I would suggest that you come and be a part of that.
Will it be streamed?
And we will let you know kind of when all that happens, but it'll start next month in, I think, April, we said. So we'll give you more information on that, and we'll do that. I want to say this in all kindness and love. Work on your priorities. Use your time right. Quit letting the distractions of life take you away. Seek the kingdom first. Work on getting here a little better on time, if you can. I know things come up and happen, but if it's becoming a habit, I would work on it if I were you. Get up a little earlier. You can range things around. And if you're getting upset with me, don't project on me. Heal yourself. But the songs that were sung, things that happened, everything that happened was all a part of preparing the environment. And it's like a song is playing and you are coming in the middle of the song and wonder what the song's about. So I'm just going to have to say that because it's on my heart. And please don't get upset with me and say, well, I just won't come if that's the deal. If you do, then you're not ready anyway. Go work out your salvation or something like that. And this is not a law. This is not what you have to do. But I'm just saying, utilize your time for your spirituality. I think it's important. Anybody mad? I don't care about you, do but please just take it from my heart to you. You give some of you 1 day on Sunday, some of you 2 days on Wednesday, and I so appreciate you that are committed to making these 2 times that we do meet together collectively useful in your journey at this time. I guess what I'm just feeling such an intensity of the time. I just feel time is just changing. Magnetic fields are changing. The whole spin of it is changing. And I just feel like we've really got to become mindful and consciousness to feed our spiritual self, our soul self, in ways that it's going to empower us, in ways that is going to help us. So, I know this is a weird message, but I just wanted to do it. I ran into it and I thought Joseph's bones. And I just want to tell you that I think when you are led to HeartLight, you just might be in the right place at the right time. And I don't think you'd be here if you weren't in here in the right place at the right time. People who come in here that's not in the right place usually don't come back. They don't stay. It is those that have reached a certain level to receive what HeartLight has for them and to reach out for them. So thank you for letting me just kind of step out of my comfort zone here and talk about the bones of Joseph. And let me just leave you with this one more time. If your future looks a little bleak, if life looks a little bit like it's barren and desert, you're missing something. Something has changed. Something has been taken out of your life. Something has whatever that I'm telling you, that's not your destiny. Your destiny is that your barren desert shall blossom as the rose and become fruitful, and your lives can be fruitful. I don't care what age you are. I don't care what you're going through, that this is not your destiny. But keep moving. Keep those legs going and keep those joints and knees going so that you can be ready to move on into what God has for you. Will you join with me? What's that little song we was doing a while ago?
Them bones?
Yeah. Them bones, dry bones, them bones, dry bones, dry bones. Hear the word of the Lord.
Ezekiel connected them, dry bones. Ezekiel connected them, dry bones. Ezekiel connected them, dry bones. Now hear the word of the Lord. Foot bone connected to the ankle bone connected to the leg bone connected to the hip bone connected to the backbone, the backbone connected to the neck bone connected to the head bone. Now hear the word of the Lord. Them bones gonna walk around. Them bones gonna walk around. Them bones gonna walk around. Now hear the word of the Lord.
How many knows that in the book of Ezekiel, it sort of talks about how that they'd had a battle and all was left with the bones of the soldiers. But the prophet Ezekiel went out there and said to those bones, rise up. And those bones begin to shake and they begin to stand up with vibration and they begin to take on a new form upon them. Yeah. So today, the prophet Ezekiel is saying to each and every one of us, offering us a frequency and a vibration to cause us to arise and realize our life's not over, but there's a new beginning that is getting ready to happen for each and every one. Yeah. Be excited about it.